is The Chris Abraham Show.
Hey, welcome back. This is Chris Abraham, Chris Cast, formerly known as, but now it's The Chris Abraham Show. And it's windy here. I don't know if you can hear me, but I am doing this episode, Season 5, Episode 6, from the Walter Reed Community Center Park. And I am right here at the pickleball court, so you might hear pickleballing in the background. I would love to be a pickleballer, and I hope to become a pickleballer this summer, if not next spring. We'll see. Maybe this fall. Who knows? Got to get into it. But today's episode is going to be about how... I can't believe how long it's taken me to figure this out, but Trump is completely our new... And I know this might be so obvious to you guys, but Trump is America's 9/11. Trump is America's 9/11, and like the Patriot Act, it has enabled America to behave extremely badly, to behave extremely fascistic, extremely totalitarian, extremely authoritarian, and even extremely despotically under the guise of by any means necessary, right? And it's the kind of behavior that I don't even know how to deal with, because there are some people that I've idolized my entire life who have been weaponized and who behave so badly with the understanding that they are having a type of democratic jihad against what they consider to be all those things I just mentioned. They are fighting fascism with fascism. They are fighting despotism with despotism. They're fighting totalitarianism with totalitarianism. They're fighting identity politics with identity politics. And it is, there's no such thing as a high road. It's all low road. It's all this understanding that while jihad exists and while there are enemies in our own country, anything is acceptable as long as the war is won against tyranny. This is a terrible thing that's happening because this has been a conservative playbook for years as well, right? The conservative, I guess, I don't even know, but there's been this idea of the Second Amendment being a tool to be used in order to fight off tyranny. And there's this idea that Christianity is being victimized. And in the same way that there is a strong belief that Jews are being victimized in America, there's also an increasing belief that Christians are being victimized. And of course, trans people are being victimized, and Asian people are being victimized, and LGBTQ people are being victimized, and gay people and lesbians are being victimized, and women are being victimized, and everybody's being victimized. Trump, in the interview with Tucker Carlson on Tuesday night, spoke as though he was being victimized. Both everybody associated with the January 6th insurrection believes they're being victimized. The people who were in Congress on their day believe that they were literally killed and assassinated and hung. And the people who were there believe that they were being empowered in order to be caught up as victims in a kangaroo court, in a false flag that was manifest and weaponized, originally just a protest against what was considered to be a stolen election, into being, if you will, a lynch mob that literally killed Pence and hung Pence and killed dozens and hundreds of police officers who up till that moment were the evil part of society, are now receiving medals of honor by the same people who tend to want to they were being beatified on one hand when it comes to responding to January 6th, and then being demonized on the other in response to Black Lives Matter and other progressive and Democrat riots. So everything's being weaponized, everything's being counter-weaponized, and I see Trump, who's going to be amazingly successful, at least when it comes to the primaries, is going to gin everybody up, and who knows, there are no rules anymore. People are very willing, I believe, to, I'm surprised that they're, and knock on wood, but I'm surprised there haven't been any suicide bombings. I'm surprised that there haven't been any bomb vests. I'm surprised that there's been no, obviously the transgender person who killed 6 people in Tennessee last week or so. I'm pretty sure that has resulted in a sort of de facto martyrdom of the person who, the trans person who entered the school and killed Christian children and teachers. I believe that is going to be painted as the first martyrdom against Christo-fascism. So since there's no limit on anything, and since both sides are using the totalitarian, authoritarian, and even like both sides are using identity politics, both sides are using tyrannical methodologies, everybody's using various and sundry CIA books for destabilizing governments. God, I gotta buy those things off of CIA. Like, everybody's using playbooks from the color revolutions domestically. It's really exciting to watch. The only thing we don't have is we don't have a Frenchman's intensity. We do not have, there are no workers in the streets. There are no brawls between riot control cops and normal people who, deliver or teach or any of that kind of thing. So with that understanding and that lack of commitment to taking the streets, and the French have Twitter, and the French have TikTok, and the French have Facebook, le Facebook, and so forth. There's no excuse. We can't just say that we're, stuck in a world where all we care about is, Tucker or Fox News or whatever. Like, the French have Le Pen, right? They have Marine Le Pen. They've got Le Pen the Elder. So, the only benefit we have is everybody's waiting, everybody's keeping their powder so dry, and everybody's waiting for the whites of the eyes, and everybody is just locking and loading and prepping and fidgeting, and nobody's doing anything. The fact that America is, at least domestically, all bark and no bite has really benefited the burning down of the cities, the burning down of the powers of control, right? Like, I personally think that January 6th was a molehill, right? Like, there was no burning, there was no permanent damage at all. There was a little bit of shit on the walls, a couple broken things, but to me, it's not an insurrection until bodies are piled up under the hail of gunfire and the entire, the entire dome of the Capitol building is incinerated from fire or bombs or whatever. Right, until the Capitol is literally a Reichstag, it was really just a protest and some breaking and entering, right? So my expectation of domestic terrorism is bodies in the streets. My expectation for riots are city blocks burnt to the ground. My expectation for all those things are extremely much more than your tolerance, one's tolerance, Americans' tolerance for antisocial behavior is. I mean, especially since we're completely normalized on hundreds of people dying every Labor and Memorial Day in America, in Chicago, and the streets of New York and streets of DC and so on and so forth. So there's 400 million privately owned guns. I'm jacking it to 400 million because I'm not saying legally owned guns. Maybe 500 million guns in general owned by people, whether it's legal or illegal. Any altercation that looks like it's going to be any semblance of a coup d'état or anything like sedition or anything like an insurrection and so forth, if there aren't bodies being, and not dying of shame 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 days later from strokes or heart attacks or whatever, right? Not from the humiliation or from being freaked out by the news or any of that sort of thing. If the only person who dies was shot in the face, Ashley Babbitt being shot in the neck, I'll be more precise, being shot in the neck by a Fed through a door, if that's the only casualty and people aren't being stacked up like cords of wood under hails of bombs, burnings, fires, and the hail of lead from gunfire, then it's just it's Hill and Knowlton, it's Edelman, it's Public Affairs, it's State Department, it's CIA, it's Public Affairs from various and sundry groups, and I don't believe it at all. So we'll know when it's real, and I never want it to be real. I'm so happy that Americans are, in general, either cowards or unwilling to shit where we eat, or are just not nearly uncomfortable enough, or our expectations are so low that we are not willing to take to the streets and really make people extremely uncomfortable to the point where there's either real, not figurative, but real martial law, and at least echoes of Les Miserables, or echoes of Let Them Eat Cake, or one legislator. In a world where judges and lawyers are being piled up like cords of wood in Latin America and around the world, the level of anti-government behavior is mostly verbal, and I believe that most of the active antisocial behavior in the terms of shootings and prevented terrorist attacks and other domestic terrorist attacks in the beginning, when it was sexy to be oppressive towards Islamic Americans, Muslim Americans. The feds fomented mentally ill people into becoming radicalized, and I believe, in the world, it's called the 6-week cycle, right? Every 6 weeks, the FBI has to do something that makes it look like they are earning their keep, that the Patriot Act deserves to be renewed and renewed. And so, the thousands of CIs and the thousands of federal cops go out there and sting people into behaving badly, and then stopping them right before blowing up a fake bomb made of fake fertilizer. So it's safety theater. It's security theater. It is a series of it is a way of controlling an uncontrollable populace, because, as my spooky friend Agent K always says, you cannot control a public that isn't willing to control themselves, right? It's been proven. You can't make people who've signed NDAs not reveal things. You need to make them afraid that if they reveal something, they'll lose everything. In a modern world where people have nothing to lose because they don't own a house, they don't have any kids, they don't have parents that they care about, they might not even have a girlfriend, they might not even have a partner, they might be completely alone, they might not even have a brotherhood or a fellowship or a religion. They might not have an association with people who, in a world, these are the people that are oftentimes recruited by spy organizations. If you aren't an orphan, but you live an orphan's life and you have nothing to lose, you're extremely dangerous. Luckily, these incel people tend to be extremely cowardly as well. If you're scared of your own shadow and you're completely permanently in a position where you are convinced that you're the victim and that you're traumatized and that your power is in your vulnerability, then you're not going to do anything, right? And if you're afraid of guns and afraid of anything like that, then you're not going to arm yourself. And if you are completely balkanized, you're not going to be a joiner either. You're not going to join any group. And if you're completely sure that there's a panopticon over all male groups, including Catholicism and Christianity and Islam, if you believe that there is ubiquitous AI digging into every corner, like they couldn't get into, like they couldn't get into the, what is it called? the server. Like, nobody's watching anything, right? In fact, there's so much ubiquitous panopticonism that nobody can track anything doing anything. Everybody can figure out what happened after a crime happened, but there's no way, like, pre-crime is pretty much an inexact science, and it's not a small world after all anymore. But like my buddy Agent K said to me, he's like, there's not a 1-to-1 ratio, right? The Stasi did an amazing job of turning all children into narcs, and turning all neighbors into narcs, and to turning all old people into narcs, and to making sure that people were not allies with their neighbors or their parents or their children, that they realized that the value and power and righteousness of the state transcends the concept of snitches get stitches, right? That's the constant libertarian ethos that the state of America, if it's going to become a Maoist, socialist, utopian future, one needs to cede the trust from that of in God, that of family, and that of community, and not come from an ethos of snitches get stitches, but what is the term? If you see something, say something. That the only way we can keep things safe is if you actively hammer down the protruding nails. So there's that. Like, I do believe that there's lots of people dying in the cities, inner cities, but I say that when it comes to gun crime, I don't include suicide in terms of gun crime. If your crime is only against yourself, then it's not criminal. And I don't believe that suicidal people are criminals. I do not believe that suicide is a criminal behavior. I do not believe that committing suicide is morally uncool. I believe that anybody who wants to check out, especially if they believe their brain is broken and they don't feel like they fit anymore, and they've been, it's the 3-strike rule, right? Like, if there's been interdiction on your tendency to want to be suicidal, and there's been an interdiction on an intervention on your behavior several times, and you are inconsolable, then your decision is your own. And, nobody, I even dated a girl pretty recently who squirreled, she doesn't do it anymore, but she squirreled away what she called her magic yellow pills, right? Like, they helped her sleep, but she also squirreled them away and made sure that she had a death dose, right? A fatal dose. There's a lot of people who do that. Like, recently, a family friend took her life via hanging, which is an extremely aggressive personal act, right? Like, it's a painful thing, right? Like, unlike a professional hanging, which is in a gallows where you fall 10 feet and break your neck, this is something where you fall maybe off of a stool, and it is 100%. It is 100% asphyxiation. God, right? I believe that you should be allowed to take your own life. I don't believe that the numbers of people who take their own life by a firearm should be included in the number of gun crime deaths in America. That said, there are 400, 500 million legal and illegal guns in America, maybe even a billion. And the restraint that garden variety Americans have in their day-to-day, considering that I think that, most of these shootings are federal setups. I mean, obviously school shootings and so forth, are less suspect. But, things where things are discovered in the nick of time and so forth, like considering that there might be short of 1 billion firearms in this country, and 783 or 793 million privately owned legally. No, sorry, I take that back. 383 or 393 million privately owned legal firearms. I would say that this is a country of extreme amounts of constraint, right? Like, it's not like the movies where cops are going into the streets after a bank robbery and mowing down using fully automatic AR-15s and machine pistols, or the ubiquitous Miami Vice Uzi, or Ingram 10 or Ingram 11, or K9, is that right? Or the ubiquitous MP5 9mm, or the sexy little 380 Scorpion or 32 caliber Scorpion, CZ Scorpion. Like, this is not this. There are, it looks like, according to the media, there might be more and more full auto Glocks now. That seems to be popular, using the third party Chinese built Sear, I think they call it a button or a something. There seems to be more of that, but I've never heard it. I've heard gunshots. I live in the greater DC area. I've never heard burp, 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 brup, 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 brup. I've never heard bursts of 3. I've never heard full auto in the streets. I've only heard semi-automatic gunfire. So I don't even know. Did I stop this at all, or did I do an introduction? Who knows? Anyway, I think I'm done, but I do think the source of this conversation has a lot to do with what I was saying before, which is to say, now that everything has become so life or death, and there's the 9/11 might have been against might have allowed jihad against the Muslim world, or against the Middle East, or against Afghanistan, or this thing called terrorism. The new one is a jihad against Americans, right? And the biggest danger, though, is that anybody who proves extreme can end up under the extremists spyglass, under the microscope, right? If you are Antifa, you are not immune. You are tomorrow's target, right? There might be a Christo-fascist focus at the moment, but in a world where, by any means necessary, it means that anybody who takes, this is not a sui generis. This is not a self-defined mission. This is a larger command and control hearts and mind mission, right? So this isn't just BLM. This isn't just trans rights. So this isn't just LGBTQ, or this isn't just pro-choice or pro-life, and this isn't just feminism against patriarchy. Like, no matter what the situation, this will be a shape changer that will always change its shape in order to foment and exacerbate and cancerify and mutate and what is the term for malignify anything that will destabilize the government in a way that there can be better control over the populace, and the populace can be coerced or manipulated, and even better than that, decide to. Because going back to Agent K, it's much better if the people who follow think they're the leaders. It's much better if the sheep, and I hate to use that word, or it's much better when the flock already knows where to go, so that the shepherd doesn't have to work so hard. And so, what's going to happen if by any means necessary? What is the next 18 months going to look like, right? Like, I assume that there's just about 18 months between now and the election. And I want you to know that Trump has always been a foil. Trump has always been a manifestation of something. He's always been trumped up. He's always been a trump card. He's always been someone who is a what is the term? A Goldberg from 1984. He's the manifestation of a false flag. He's the manifestation of a boogeyman. He is a manifestation of a Hitler, of a Mussolini, of a Mao, of a Stalin, of a Lenin, of a despot like Ceausescu or whomever. Like, he is America's Putin, right? He is the heel in a wrestling match. He is the wrestler you jeer at, while the face, and I assume that the face is Joe Biden. The face comes out swathed in an American flag, and while in comes the evil, devious, terrifying, monstrous caricature that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump leans into his caricature. Donald Trump has never tried to remake himself into anything but a reduction of Donald Trump. He is the low-class version of the Monopoly Man, right? He is the Monopoly Man with a bad tan, bad dye job, and zero spectacles, zero spats, zero waistcoat, zero white tail, black tuxedo, right? He is the floppy-haired 1980s villain in any sundry movie where some douchebag sleeps with your wife, forecloses your house, destroys your credit, and fires you. So, all that said, this is going to be fun to watch. If there are no rules during a time of jihad, I'm surprised that things haven't gotten much more terrifying. I think that a periodic school shooting is nothing. 1969, 1968, they burnt down Washington, D.C. They burnt the fucking place down. Not just a couple cop cars, but they burnt down most of U Street. Right? When I started college in 88 here, like, that whole neighborhood was still POS, man. Still It's not smoldering literally, but smoldering figuratively. Anyway, I thought I'd go ahead and record a very sweet and loving and kind and generous podcast to keep everything light and uplifted. And I'll talk to you soon. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.